Welcome to the ArcGIS Solutions Local and State Government Session, and welcome to everyone online. My name is Scott Ottman, and I lead the ArcGIS Solutions Group and also the State and Local Government Solutions. Joining me today is Chris Fox, and Chris leads our Infrastructure Solutions team and also our Web Development team as well. Okay. And Andrew's going to moderate Q&A coming in from online, so if you are live streaming this session at home and you have questions along the way, we'll certainly take questions as well from our live streamed audience. We want to keep this session as informal as possible. It's a little hard to see everyone with the lights, but if you do have questions along the way, do not hesitate to raise your hand and we'll try to answer it. We also have time at the end to address questions as well too. So let's just wait 1 second. That's the wrong one. We need to go to 4.
Yeah, I'm changing it really quick.
Okay.
Is 4 right?
Yep. All right, so let's just do this, and that's.
Sorry about that.
Okay, all right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. As I mentioned, don't hesitate to stop, ask us questions along the way. The most important thing about this session today is we really want you to come away with a solid understanding of why are ArcGIS solutions valuable in your organization and how can you leverage them in the work you do. And so that really is the most critical part of this session altogether. So I want to start with a little bit of context. You know, as you saw in the plenary yesterday and as you'll see throughout the week, ArcGIS as a system continues to evolve. We're constantly adding new capabilities to the system at the desktop, server, online, a whole ecosystem of apps, and it really truly is a comprehensive geospatial system that takes advantage of the latest capabilities in the technology industry and within ArcGIS. And as you saw, right, ArcGIS is a comprehensive system, and I bet if I asked many of you what your definition of ArcGIS is, you'd probably say, well, it's the desktop software I use to manage geospatial data in my organization. It might be ArcGIS Enterprise that I use to host that information and share it through a portal with users within my organization. Some of you are also using our SaaS capabilities like ArcGIS Online and all the ecosystem of apps. And ultimately, this is truly a comprehensive geospatial system that you use in your organization to manage location-based data and share it with stakeholders internally and externally. And as part of that system, you have access to a whole host of what we call ArcGIS solutions. And that's really what we're going to focus on today, is how you can take advantage of the ArcGIS solutions in your organization. And if I were to tell you, what's a simple definition of ArcGIS solutions? Well, really, it is our focus is to close the gap between the core software that you have access to and what you do every day in your organization. So how do we really make it easier for you to maximize the investment that you're making in location-based data and technology and really put that to work in unique ways? So what are ArcGIS solutions? Well, there really are the largest collection of geospatial solutions in the industry. They are configurations of our core product that are designed to help you improve operations, manage authoritative data, and even gain new insight. And this collection of solutions is really designed to help you maximize that investment you're making in location-based data and technology and apply it to a whole diverse set of needs in your organization and to the citizens and residents you serve. And fundamentally, what you'll see today is that ArcGIS solutions are configurations of our core product that are organized around a specific business need, and they include a whole series of focus maps and apps for different personas in your organization. And you can use them to improve operations, gain new insight, and even enrich the services you deliver to residents and citizens in your community. And one of the most important things for you to take away from this session is that they come with your ArcGIS subscription. They aren't something additional that you need to purchase or procure. They just come with your ArcGIS Online organization, with your ArcGIS Enterprise portals, and you can leverage them every day in your organization today. And so you can deploy them quickly in your ArcGIS Online environment. You could deploy them on infrastructure you manage in ArcGIS Enterprise and both, quite frankly. The other thing that's important to understand is that ArcGIS solutions aren't new. We've probably changed the name a few times over the last 10 or 12 years, but fundamentally our mission is the same. And there are, I think over the last year and a half, we've had about 80 or 85,000 deployments of solutions across 30,000 different organizations. And you'll see in this slide, there are organizations of all shapes and sizes using ArcGIS solutions to help them maximize that value in their organization. And today, in addition to just sharing with you what are available or what is available, we really want you to understand why we're doing this so you can really apply it to your organization and really understand how you can take advantage of these capabilities in your community. And I want to start with a little bit of kind of backdrop or context for this. You know, I've worked in state and local government actually most of my professional career, and you know, someone called me a homer for government, right? But you know, and we all know that local government and state government to some extent, right, that's where the rubber hits the road. That's right where the services we deliver really impact the citizens of our community. It's where our kids go to school, it's where we vote, it's where we, you know, enjoy the parks and recreation amenities in the community, and ultimately the decisions made at that level really impact the quality of life in our communities that we live and reside in as well. And unfortunately, though, we know that right in local government, like it's not just delivering tax bills, assessing property, managing roads, right? We're dealing with really complicated problems at the state and local level. Social issues that are impacting our communities, public safety issues, aging infrastructure issues, right? There's a whole host of what I call wicked problems that we're being forced to deal with at the local level and state level to some extent as well too. And what's exciting about that, right, is it really is a unique opportunity to apply geospatial data and technology, but it's also really challenging at the same time, because in the morning you could be talking to the police chief about how you're helping them reduce crime in the community. In the afternoon you could be climbing into a manhole and helping the public works department understand how to do manhole inspections and how to, you know, improve the quality of infrastructure in your community. And so it really is a diverse spectrum of business needs and business challenges that you're working on every day in your community. And they're pretty complicated problems, but what's really exciting is that location really can be that unifying technology that helps us address and gain new insight. At the same time, we're really hearing that there are unique organizational challenges as well in our organization, or acute constraints that are impacting how we're delivering services and the systems that we support to deliver those services. Years ago, I used to work at Oakland County, Michigan, and we would spend 40 to 60% of our time on fixed labor. Everyone know what I mean when I say fixed labor, right? Support and maintenance of our existing systems. And every hour we spent on fixed labor is one less hour we spent on new services, right? And so how do we really think about reducing that fixed labor cost and ultimately increasing the services we deliver to our constituents? At the same time, we're having a hard time keeping staff, talented staff, and all those things, right? You guys are all familiar with that. We don't need to dwell on it. Unfortunately, as a result, what we see is that many GIS implementations aren't really ready to handle some of these unique challenges. It's at no one's fault, but they might have started in the assessor's department because we needed to map parcels and look at property value information. It could have started in the utility department because they were mapping infrastructure and using that to start an asset management program. Maybe it grew beyond those departments, or maybe it's just only existing in one or a few departments and not broadly used across the organization. Sometimes we can't leverage the full capabilities in ArcGIS that you guys saw yesterday and we'll see throughout the week because I just don't have enough capacity to take advantage of that or the skills to do it. And ultimately, unfortunately, what that leaves is little time to spend on the stuff we really enjoy and why we probably got into this, and that is to use location-based data and maps to solve real problems, right? That's probably why most of us got into this business to begin with. It wasn't to manage servers and users and all that stuff, right? So fundamentally, with that context in mind, that's really why we want you to think about ArcGIS Solutions as a fundamental force multiplier for your organizations and as a way to really take advantage of some of the capabilities in ArcGIS. And our mission is really clear. We want to help you take those generic GIS capabilities that you saw yesterday applied in many of the organizations or just through our demonstrations and apply it to the business of government, right? How do you really translate all of those capabilities into specific workflows for real users in your organization that do real work? And what you'll see is that comes to life through a set of integrated workflows and focus maps and apps that Chris will show you today that are designed for those key personas. And that really helps you align the technology with those business needs across that organization. Now, we don't do this, though, in a vacuum, right? We work very collaboratively with the community because the important thing about this work is we want it to reflect your needs. And so we're constantly engaging with communities across the globe to understand what challenges, what needs, what specific capabilities you might need in these solutions and building it into the product so everyone benefits. Another thing you'll find is that the solutions just come with a lot of the industry tradecraft that exist in the community already. What's a simple example of that, Scott? Well, it could just be Everyone starts an address data management project, at least domestically here in the United States, by looking at Postal Service standards, the Next Gen 911 standards, right, and all of these standards that exist out there in the market. Well, what if we just build them into the product so when you deploy the address data management solution, it just comes with it, and then you can start your implementation from there. And so you'll see a lot of this, as you deploy solutions, a lot of that industry tradecraft that you might need to gain as you start your own project is already part of the product when you get going. And what this allows you to do is really focus on the unique needs in your organization and close that gap even quicker. The last thing I'll mention is that the other thing we want to do is help you stay current. I mentioned that story about fixed labor. It's really hard to stay current with our technology. We're releasing new desktop capabilities twice a year, new enterprise capabilities twice a year, online releases at least 3 times a year, and there's a whole host of other releases in between there. And staying current with that, that cycle and that release cadence is really challenging for organizations. So what we like to provide are really simple low-code or no-code configurations of our core apps that you can easily extend if you need to, but you don't have to have development experience to do that. And as you deploy solutions, what you'll see is we're delivering the new ArcGIS capabilities you saw yesterday, you'll see throughout the week, in the solutions and positioning them around those key workflows. So if I really were to boil this up into like what are our fundamental goals and how are we trying to help? Well, we're really trying to help you increase the capacity, agility, and reach of your organization. How can I, maximize the resources I have in my organization? How can I be more responsive as these dynamic needs are occurring in my organization? And how can I actually deliver additional services to departments and organizations within my local government or state government? And at the same time, we're trying to reduce the cost, right? And that could be staff time, that could be infrastructure costs to manage your GIS systems. We're trying to reduce the risk of starting a large development project and getting 6 months down the road and figuring out that the technology's completely changed, that elected officials gone and they don't want that system anymore, right? You guys understand all the dynamics there. So really reduce the risk and help you reach those audiences much quicker and the friction to take, that comes with all of that work. So does that make sense to everyone? Yeah? Tracking? Okay. The other thing I'll mention is that, as we're developing these solutions, like Esri's not the only one doing this, right? Our solutions you won't only find those in the ArcGIS ecosystem. And we're also keeping an eye on trends that are more broadly being shared. In this case, NACIO, right? Every year they come out, if you're not familiar, the national states CIOs, right? They put out their, top 10 trends, and we're constantly looking at those trends to understand how geospatial technology fits into that larger context, right? And so you'll see things on this list that is very, very similar to what we talk about: modernization of mobile workflows, engage public, more proactive services in the public, and things like that. And we're also fitting into a larger ecosystem of trends, right, that are happening at the macro level, in technology, consumerization. Many, many years ago, right, the way people consume content and interact with content completely changed. We went from single apps with lots of data, right, to an app economy, right, and people just have an app for this and an app for that, and if you look at what's interesting about that is, right, that whole movement started probably in the consumer space, but it's really making its way into business as well too, right, and there's millions and millions of apps now, right, that our users, folks in departments we serve, residents, they have every day that they use to interact with government, right? And so how do we kind of fit into that larger ecosystem as well too? And what you'll see is you guys procure technology broadly across your ecosystems, right? That many, many other technology providers are talking about how you deploy solutions, not just core capabilities. And that's really kind of one of the fundamental messages, right? We're not talking about, okay, how do I just manage the geospatial system for my community, but how do I actually deliver solutions to end users and I serve? And whether you're buying, compute power in the Azure environment, whether you're buying a real specific customer relationship management system that's used maybe for HR and finance and other needs in your government, or even a more focused business system like a 911 CAD and record system, right? They're all talking about how I apply that technology to the business. So today, if you look out across our ecosystem, and Chris will show you more in a few minutes, right, there's about 150, maybe a few more than that, solutions that are available to you, right? It's a large ecosystem, and the state and local market is probably the largest market. And if you really think about the work we're doing in the utility space, that I would say probably 70 to 80% of the solutions that exist are there for you to take advantage of. And if you boil that up, obviously we don't have time to go through all 150 of those today. But if you really think about what are the common patterns you'll see as you start to dig in, what you'll notice is there's a set of solutions that really help you manage the authoritative data in your organization. That could be utilities, underground utilities. That could be visible assets in the right-of-way. Fundamental things like addresses and parcels and even right-of-way information. That could be more transactional information like road closures that are happening every day in your community as a result of construction and special events and other types of activities. And it could be things that help you also go from kind of 2D representations to those really immersive 3D representations we saw in the plenary yesterday. The next kind of class or tier of solutions really help you take that authoritative information and other data coming from systems and start to gain new insight or create new understanding. Perhaps you're looking at things like equity or crime in your community. Maybe you're starting to you want to understand how neighborhoods are tipping in a positive or negative direction. All of these solutions allow you to take that authoritative data you have and do some pretty complex analysis workflows to produce information products that you can then use to inform policy and other types of decisions you make in your organization. You'll see that there's a whole host, and Chris is really going to show you this today, that really help you visualize operational and strategic performance of your organization. Could be managing winter weather events that occur and which streets have been serviced in the last 15, 20, and 30 minutes. It could be more strategic objectives like performance management you're undertaking, or even things like police transparency. Others are things like location-based systems. We kind of call them location-based systems. Think about a whole ecosystem of apps that address an entire workflow. Maybe help you, manage a tree program, an urban forestry program in your community. Perhaps they help you run election night operations and tabulate ballots and wait times at polling places and other things that are relevant on election night. And even conduct things that are required as federal mandates, like lead service line inventories, and then share that information with the public. And so you'll see there are a whole host of information products that are designed to work together as comprehensive systems in your organization. And finally, one of the areas we've really been focused on is how do you help engage the public? And I use that term broadly to talk about a whole continuum of offerings that start with simple applications that help you share that authoritative information with the public. The local level, what's one of the most popular or frequent questions we get? When's my trash getting picked up? How do you start to use citizens as a sensor? Because I have the size of my O&M staff is declining, and I really want to empower citizens to tell me where problems may be occurring so I can then effectively allocate resources. Or maybe I want to go one step further and actually enlist volunteers in my community to help augment my O&M staff, right, and help maintain assets in my community. So we really use that term kind of public engagement broadly to talk about a whole host of offerings that are available. And that really spans, quite frankly, many, many, many different business units within government, right? We all know that as well. So with that quick context in mind, what I'd like to do now is turn it over to Chris and really spend the bulk of our time together just showing you some of the solutions. But before we do that, maybe let's pause for a minute. Anyone have any questions or thoughts before we go? Make sense? Anything, Andrew, online?
Just someone wondering, for solution data domains like asset types or owners, how can we import new domains? Manually adding coding values is very time consuming, and some layers have same domains for some fields.
Yep, that's a good question. So how do we configure this? So maybe I'll paraphrase that. And how do I configure the solutions to meet specific needs of my organization? And I think we'll cover that in the demonstration. Chris can talk a little bit about that. Okay? All right, thanks. Let's dig in. Chris, go ahead.
Can you switch it over to 5? All right, great. Thanks, everyone. So like Scott mentioned, we have over 150 solutions. We had over 100 state and local government solutions. We don't have enough time to go through every single one today. Happy to show you any one you want to see at the showcase later if you want to come by and stop by. We have lots of people that are willing to demo any of those. So when thinking about what we wanted to demo, we kind of wanted to show a couple solutions that demonstrated those patterns that Scott just talked about. How can we manage our authoritative data? How can we deploy these location-based operational systems? How do we understand conditions of our assets or things that we're responsible for managing? How then can we visualize our performance in delivering service and maintaining those assets? And then how do we engage the public? So today I'm going to show you our new roadway management solution, and I'm also going to show you our road closure solution. So roadway management can be used to inventory your public roads and their characteristics, to conduct routine pavement condition assessments, and streamline your inspection and maintenance activities. And when you deploy a solution, you're going to get many components. So the first component that I'm going to show today is a configuration of ArcGIS Pro called our roadway data management solution. And this is how you're going to initially inventory your roads and their road characteristics. So with roadway management, we're taking the approach of using simple features to manage our roadways and their roadway characteristics. So some of you at the state level or larger municipalities may be using linear referencing to manage your roads. We're not using linear referencing in this solution. We're using simple features, and we're using stacked layers to understand the characteristics of those roadways. So when you deploy the solution, you get a set of feature layers that come configured with the schema required to understand and inventory your roads. And this Pro project also has a set of tasks that walk me through some of the key capabilities. And this is a common pattern you'll see in our solutions, where we'll either walk you through a task or have documentation that describes how you can load data into the solution and begin using it. So in this map, I have several characteristic layers. So underneath, I have my road center lines, and here I'm symbolizing on road class. So I can see my minor arterials, my collectors, my local roads, and any interstates or freeways are stored here. If I want to begin to inventory the speed limits of my roads, I'm going to use the construction tools and the feature templates here to begin understanding or capturing the characteristics of those roadways. So for example, if I have a local road that's 25 miles per hour, I'm going to use the trace tool. I'm just going to snap. That's going to trace along that road and finish. And so we're just using really simple construction tools to inventory the characteristics of things like speed limit, number of lanes, lane width, road class, pavement type, etc. You'd repeat this for all your road segments, and then you'd have a good understanding of the characteristics of those roadways. So next, I'm going to transition. Once we kind of have done the inventory of our roads and we understand their characteristics, we might want to go out and begin to assess the conditions of those roadways. We have a couple field workflows that allow you to do that. So I'm going to transition over here to my mobile device. The first one, we're using quick capture, and we have a quick capture project here called the Rapid Pavement Assessment. So this methodology for conducting a pavement assessment is what you would do at speed. As you're driving down the road, maybe you have a team of people, someone's driving, someone's assessing the road. I can be driving down the road, and from what I observe, I'm just going to tap and say the condition of that road. And we can flip over to the map here, and we're driving along the road, and we're capturing that condition as we're going along. If I discover that the road improves, I'm just simple tap, changing the condition. So it's a really quick way to get a rough assessment of the road condition. We have a Python notebook that comes with the solution that takes these raw results and snaps them to your roadways, and then enriches and understands the assessment of those roads. Another approach that we have is conducting a PCI. And so with a PCI survey, you're actually going to go out into the field and capture all the distresses that you observe on the roadway. And from those distresses and the severity associated with those, we're going to calculate a PCI score. And this is another important pattern that I want to highlight, is we do a lot of work to go out and do research and understand industry standards and methodology, and we build that into the solution. So all of the distress types and the calculations that we're doing to conduct a PCI are coming from national standards for conducting a PCI. So you don't have to figure that out. You don't have to go and vet that. You can just use the solution and start doing that. So with a PCI survey, the way you're going to start is typically you have survey units. So this is segments of your road that you're deciding that you're going to go out and conduct a survey. So in the field, I would select a survey unit. And then when it loads up, it's getting characteristics of the road. I'm going to launch the PCI survey. So this is taking me to survey 123, where we've configured a very focused survey that's going to allow me to go out and conduct this PCI. It's passing information from the road, including the geometry, the road name, and some of the characteristics like the width and length, so we can get an area associated with that road. And then, so on the first page, I can indicate, is this new pavement? If we just paved it, it's going to have a PCI score of 100. It's in perfect condition. But in this case, I'm assessing an existing road. So now I'm going to start to observe the distress type. So I'm going to walk along the road and I observe, let's say, some edge cracking. We're going to say it has a high severity, and we're going to measure the length of that distress in linear feet. So we'll say it's 10 feet. I could snap a photo, and in the map, if I was out in the field actually conducting a survey on this road, it would snap me to that. You know, I could use my current location in the field. I'm just going to highlight here and select that location. And so now I've captured that distress, and I have a little table here that's summarizing my distresses and the severity. So I could add another one. Let's say we would find some potholes. They're high severity, and we see 3 of them. And I can go back to the map, and if we look in the map here, you can see we have the history of other distresses that we've seen. So there was the edge cracking that I observed that I also see in the map. So I can continue to add additional severities here. So I observed the potholes here, and again, we have a summary. I would repeat that for every distress that I discovered on that road, and then I would go to the final page where it summarizes the PCI for that road, and I can review the results and agree and say that it's accurate and hit OK. Sorry, my screen went dark there for a second. All right, so, and then I submit. And then I can move on to the next survey unit and conduct the next survey. So you can see 2 different methodologies for condition, assessing the road condition. Both are kind of industry standards that we've seen that allow you to better understand the condition of your assets. Next, I'm going to transition into the browser. And this is demonstrating that pattern that we talked about in terms of deploying location-based operational systems. So this is our roadway management center. It's a configuration of Experience Builder. And it brings together several different apps that allow you to understand your inventory. So where are my roads? I'll break down by road class, see some of the details. I don't have time today to kind of jump into the maintenance workflows, but we do have a set of field workflows that allow you to go out and perform and record any maintenance that you are conducting on the roads. So we're filling potholes and we want to capture that information and record it. Back in the Experience Center, I can see the status of those maintenance activities and better understand how I'm performing in those areas. We can manage and respond to service requests. So either coming inside the organization or from the public. Many of you may have 311 systems where you're allowing residents to report issues in the roadway. I saw a pothole or I saw an issue, and those can come in as service requests. We have in our public engagement site that I'll show in a little bit, a public-facing form that allows residents to report those issues. They can come into this operational center and you can triage them and respond to them here as well. We're integrating workforce to manage field staff and field crews, so both in reporting maintenance and responding to maintenance, but also doing field assessments. So if you want to dispatch your assessors to a given road or set of roads, you can create assignments and dispatch them to there. And the last aspect is how you're kind of understanding the assessment overall. So here we have the pavement assessment dashboard that's integrated in the Experience Center. And this is where we're aggregating all of the pavement assessment that we conducted both either through PCI or rapid assessment. And I can see the breakdown of my roads, the state of the pavement. I can filter by different road types. So if I want to look at all my critical roads, I can see that. Luckily for me, it's a very thin sliver, so that's a good thing, but harder to click, I guess. So this allows you then also to break down for the different types. So if I'm supporting both rapid pavement assessments and PCI scores, I can also view the details there. As I transition to engaging the public, another main component that we deliver with this solution is an ArcGIS hub site called our Quality Roads site. And this is where you can communicate everything related to your road activities and the quality of your roads. So this is where you can talk about things like how many potholes did we fill? How many miles of center line are we responsible for and where are they? What's the current state of the pavement based on our assessments? We also have a public-facing app that allows people to see the current pavement ratings. So in this app, as a resident, I could zoom around in the map or I can search for my address. So I'm going to look for my home here. It's going to zoom me into the map, and I can see the road out in front of my house, and I can click on it. I can see the current condition, I can see the rating and how it was conducted, and I can also see the history of my road as well. So we're recording that history of the pavement as I've conducted pavement assessments every couple of years. We're documenting and recording that information. We also allow you to link out to other information that you might have. So you can kind of aggregate different information from your organization. So if you have a road paving plan, you want to communicate that out. Maybe it's a PDF, maybe it's another map, you can link out to that. Here's the survey that allows people to submit a service request or report a problem. So it's a very focused Survey 123 form that allows people to select the type of issue that they observed and zoom into the map and drop a point for where that issue is occurring. And that will show back up in that operations center where I can triage and handle that request. We have another supporting solution called Adopt a Road. So this is a very popular thing that we're seeing in many communities, soliciting engaged residents to help keep roadways clean, which can improve the quality for other residents. And lots of volunteer organizations like to have their signage up saying, I adopted this road and I'm responsible for it. So this is a great opportunity to engage residents further in helping with maintaining your assets. So that's an overview of roadway management. Now that we've kind of understood the condition of our pavement, we might want to execute some capital projects or some improvement plans to repave or improve the quality of our roadways. And through that, you might ultimately need to close some roads. And so using the road closure solution, it's a very focused web editing application that allows you to inventory road closures in your community and then ultimately share those with the residents so they're aware of these road closures. And using this application, what I can do is I can select a feature template. So we're going to close South Julian Street here in both directions. So I'm going to click and draw along the road. I can put in the name, Street. We're going to be doing construction. I can indicate when it's going to occur, so it's going to be next week for a couple days. Any contact information that I want to associate, and I can save that closure. So really easy to kind of document and capture those closures. And this is a great way as well to have this authoritative information in your system, but then also share it with your residents. Okay, so that's an overview of a couple solutions that we have. What I want to transition now to is where do you get access to these solutions, where can you find them? So if you search in the browser for ArcGIS Solutions, you'll come to our ArcGIS Solutions website, and this is where you can learn more about our ArcGIS Solutions. It tells our story about what we're really striving to do, where we're focused area. We have a set of resources. So if you're looking for how to get started, some tutorials on using some of our solutions, we have those, access to our blogs, and the community page where other users are collaborating, answering, and asking questions about them. We have access to all of our help. So every single one of our solutions has really detailed documentation that describes what's included with the solution when you deploy it, how do you deploy it, ultimately how do you configure the solution and extend it to meet your needs, and then how do you use the solution from the user personas that would be using the solution. As you've seen, a lot of these are designed to be put into the hands of maybe non-traditional GIS people. We really design these to be used by the people who need to do the work. And so when you read through the use topic, we really try to describe who are the key user personas that would be using these different pieces. If you're ready to learn more or discover our solutions, we have a rich gallery of our over 150 solutions. You can filter by different industries and domains. So I'm going to filter by state and local government. Maybe I'm looking for something in public works. I'm interested in that road closure solution that I just talked about. So let's click on that and learn a little bit more. We can read a brief snippet of what it's intended for, or who's going to use it. We have a link out to our documentation where you can learn more. You can click through a gallery of slides and images that kind of give you an overview of the different information products that are included. And ultimately, when you want it, you can hit deploy. And what's happening when I'm deploying the solution is it's creating all of that content, in this case in my ArcGIS Online org. You can also deploy to ArcGIS Enterprise. And road closures comes with a couple features. It comes with a hosted feature service and a feature layer view on top of that feature service that I can use to share with the public. It comes with a configured web map with the symbology and the pop-ups and the editing definition. And then in this case, it comes with a web app builder configuration, so a configured app that sits on top of that web map. And so it's going to create all that content in my organization, and then I can start to use it. So let's go over to my content. We can look at the roadway management solution that I had deployed previously. So if I select this solution, you're going to see a lot of items. This roadway management is a very comprehensive solution, so it comes with a lot of content. But it really kind of fundamentally comes down to a few things. There's going to be a set of feature layers. And what you'll see is there's often the source feature layer that has the key attributes and features that we need to store information for. And then it has a set of views. And we use these views on top of these feature services to control access and editability and who's going to use the different pieces. So you might see, for example, some public views. On this pavement assessment layer, I have a public view. That view is intended to share out with that public app, and it's non-editable, and it hides some of the fields that are not meant to be shared with the public. So we use these views to really control access and who's using the different components. And you can extend these layers. So we deliver them with a set of schema to support the workflows that we understand, but there's no reason you can't add additional fields, modify domains, and add and extend there. That will have no impact on the solution. What I would recommend against deleting fields, because it may have unintended consequences in other aspects of the solution. So unless you're very familiar with how that field's used, it could have negative consequences. But adding fields is going to have no impact and not cause any issues with the layers. It's going to come with a set of web maps. And these web maps are going to have information about the layers, their symbology, the pop-up configurations, the editing forms, so when we're using smart forms and field maps and other places, it's going to be defined in the web map. And you can modify those things. So if you want to change the symbology, if you want to update the pop-up definition, you can modify and tweak all of those things in the web map, and they come to life in the apps as well. And then there'll be a series of apps. So in this roadway management, we have an ArcGIS hub site. We have a web experience. We have several dashboards. We have a Survey 123 form. We have a pro project. And we have another configurable app. So you'll see these tools that are available in ArcGIS. We use them when they make sense. You know, I used Quick Capture for that rapid assessment because it's a big button app and I can just click as I'm going down the road and observe things. I used Survey 123 for the PCI assessment because I really needed a really focused, detailed survey with really complex functionality, and it offered those capabilities. So we look across our platform and what capabilities exist, and we choose the appropriate tool based on the user persona and the thing we're trying to solve for. But all of these tools are just out-of-the-box capabilities of ArcGIS, and you can extend them like any other thing. If I want to modify that public dashboard that I'm sharing in my hub site, I can use the dashboard app to edit the dashboard and make those changes. So like Scott said, it's low code. We're not doing custom things here. We're just trying to give you a great head start on implementing a solution so you can focus on some of the other more complex challenges that you have in your organization. So with that, I think I'm going to hand it back to Scott.
So Chris showed a lot of stuff. Maybe let's just pause real quick. Anyone have any questions? And I guess the other thing I would add is, like we said, right, it's really hard to show everything, and we could bounce around from one solution to another. But Chris kind of stayed with that roadway theme, right? Everything from kind of understanding the roads that I'm responsible in my community, doing one of the most fundamental things once I know which roads I'm responsible for is what condition are they in. And then something a little bit more transactional, which is, okay, I have right-of-way permits that are issued every day in my community, and that could be for an event, but it could also be for construction and repaving and the infrastructure investments we're making in our community, and I need to be able to communicate that to internal and external stakeholders. So there's some solutions that have a lot of info products, like roadway management, and there's a very comprehensive system that will reach into different parts of the organization, and there are other solutions that are really focused, like road closures. Make sense? And then if you just think about that concept, and then you could go look at an election solution, you could go look at a planning and development solution, public safety, you'll see the same constructs apply. We're picking the right tool for the right job and for that specific persona. So let me just switch back and wrap up, and then we can take some questions. So the other thing, I want to just pause for a minute, and I want to reflect back on that road closure solution that Chris talked about. He talked about how that whole solution's designed for engaging, well, really informing the public, right? And we've really been thinking a lot about this because, if I look across probably if you're from a local or state government, you probably have some place on your website that shares road closure information with the community. And you might push that information out to citizens through email, through social media. Like I said, you've got that destination on your website. But your citizens and residents, they're really thinking about, how do I navigate through the community, and they're using their smartwatch or they're using their, device, right? And the native mapping applications that are on those devices they buy and use in their kind of day-to-day lives. And we've really been thinking a lot about how can we help bridge this natural divide that exists today, right? Like, you manage this authoritative data, you want to make it available to the public, but your residents and the citizens that are navigating through the community probably aren't coming to your website to look for road closure information, right? And using that to navigate throughout the community when they're going to pick up the kids at school. And we really think there's an opportunity, right, to help ArcGIS users, our community of users, bridge that gap. And I guess I'm curious, this is your turn to participate, how many of you might be interested in taking authoritative road closure information and sharing it with consumer mapping applications so residents could access it really easily on their devices? By show of hands, how many of you might be interested? Quite a few of you? Okay. Well, if you want to talk about that more, come see us. Like, we'd be really interested in talking about it. It's something we're thinking about with a lot of our public engagement solutions, right? We've really focused on these rich experiences, but we do realize, right, that having an app on your website or having a map on your website may not be the most effective way to get it into the hands of end users in your community. So before we wrap up, let me just take a few minutes to talk a little bit about what we're thinking about in the future. Chris showed you some of the more recent solutions we've been building, and some really comprehensive offerings and some very focused ones. And the one great thing about the work we're doing is it's constantly evolving, and it's evolving as a direct result of feedback we're getting from users as they're kicking the tires on solutions and taking advantage of that organization. We're taking that feedback and driving it in to future releases, and we're also keeping an eye on industry trends and how can we apply location-based data to meet some of those industry trends, and working with our sector teams to kind of understand what the community needs at large. And what you'll continue to see is, like, we're really focused on these comprehensive offerings, right, that address many needs in your organization. How do you reach out and address a larger workflow, like something as complicated as roadway management? People might be using different pieces of technology to do that today, but how do we bring it together and really apply location to that? What you'll see is we're also trying to take advantage of the latest capabilities. So we're thinking really hard about how do we use things like ArcGIS Velocity to improve real-time operations? How do we begin to incorporate some of the machine learning and AI capabilities that are coming into ArcGIS and using that to improve? Right? And there's just a whole host of capabilities we're always adding to ArcGIS, and each release of our solutions tries to take advantage of those latest capabilities. But ultimately, what we're really focused on is delivering a set of solutions that are really simple and easy to use. And if you've been tracking the work we've done over the last, let's say 5 to 7 years, you'll see that progression. Like, I expected a little bit of aha and awesome when Chris just clicked a deploy button and it created all that content for you. Like, how long would that have taken you to do that if you were doing it on your own? Long time, right? A couple hours at least, I'll get, if you're good, right? But like literally in a matter of moments, you can deploy one of these solutions, you can start evaluating it, you can start to configure it, you can set it down in front of some decision makers in your organizations, your operations manager, your field workers, others in the organization, say, hey, what if we had something like this? And the other thing I want to impress on you is there is little risk. Like Chris said, it's just creating ArcGIS items in your portal, whether that's online or enterprise. So if you don't like it, when you're done, select all those items, hit delete, and they're gone, right? And so there is very, very little risk. And the other thing I'll encourage you to think about is like many of these solutions can be repurposed for other use cases in your organization. So I would really encourage you to really think about the solutions gallery as a starting point, obviously for the specific things we're trying to address. But I also would think about it as a very good inspirational example for other use cases in your organization. How can I take roadway management and make it trail management, to use an example, right? So you'll see we have probably 3, maybe 4 releases a year. In June, we just shipped a whole host of new content, and we're really very focused on kind of infrastructure as a broad category. If you were to ask me, Scott, where are you focused and where are you guys working in the ArcGIS Solutions Division? There's probably 2 or 3 fundamental areas we're working in. Infrastructure, so think about all the visible assets and underground assets that we manage in our communities, and maybe private utilities manage as well too. Think about kind of things related to that, anything and everything related to that. Public safety is another big area we're focused on. How do we help communities understand safety concerns in their community and effectively allocate resources? And that's a trend that I would see going forward, and you can see in our planned releases later this year. So the next release you'll see from us is sometime in Q4 of this year. You'll see a couple things. You'll see a whole host of new solutions that are coming. You'll see existing solutions that are being upgraded and maintained, kind of modernized, so to speak, for lack of a better term, going from some of the 3X apps to the 4X apps, taking advantage of new capabilities in field maps. You'll see support added for Pro 3.2 and Enterprise 11.2, right? So we do all that work for you, so you don't have to worry about in your organization. And at the same time, we're also delivering a lot of new capabilities across the ecosystem of industries we support. So I guess I'll just close before we open it up for questions with, what's my call to action? What's my ask for you? Well, if you aren't already, I would really be thinking about how you accelerate your move to services and kind of web GIS across your organization. I'm hoping most of you are already somewhere along that path and that journey. And as you do that, right, you really can empower your end users. The way we can deploy and maximize the investment we're making in ArcGIS has completely changed, right? We don't need to kind of hold it all close and tight. We can really empower our users to take advantage of these capabilities and deploy meaningful solutions in their organization. The other thing I would say is really focus on the business. Our whole goal is to take all these unique capabilities that exist in the ArcGIS and translate them to business, the business of the people that run the operations, that manage the operations. That's what we're really trying to help you do through this ecosystem of solutions and really help you then maximize that investment you're making. And ultimately take advantage of a lot of the SaaS capabilities we have. It is a great way to begin to prototype. Well, first of all, it can be your source of truth for your organization, right? It can be your system of record for all of the workflows in your organization. That's your GIS system. But it also can be a great way to prototype and quickly evolve these capabilities. And ultimately, we want you to leverage the solutions that are there. And as you leverage the ArcGIS solutions that are there, give us feedback. We'll use that feedback to drive future capabilities. So the next time you deploy the solution, it'll have the needs in your organization. Mark my words, if you're asking for capabilities, my guess is some other people want those capabilities too. And so we're constantly listening for needs in the community and using that to drive our roadmap. And we really want to help you maximize the investment you're making and the resources you have available to you so you can meet all those diverse needs in your organization. So we have some time for questions at the end. We also want to be mindful of any questions that came in online, Andrew. And I guess I'll stop by saying thank you for coming today And certainly if you have any questions, why don't we go ahead and take them right now? Go ahead.
How much adjustment do we have to make for any of the solutions like the road closure for any organization? And how can we export the data in real time to platforms like Google Maps?
That's a good question. So the question was, how much configuration do I need to do to the data and the layers? And how do I get that content into the hands of the consumer mapping applications? To answer your first question, that depends. I'm not trying to be smart, but it does depend right on your businesses. We try to look at all the industry capabilities that are required, and we'll build that into the layers that come with it. But you can absolutely extend them. In the case of road closures, we looked at a lot of the standards that were out there, and specifically standards that were used to integrate with third-party systems like Waze, for example, and built that into the solution. So if you deployed the road closure solution today, you could then start to organize and manage your content and then share it with the public and start to syndicate it with some of them already, and we're working on that other problem now. So, good question. Other questions? Go ahead, back here. Oh, good question. If you're running enterprise or online, how do you decide which platform to deploy them to? And I think that's a tough question to answer without knowing how you're applying enterprise and online to that work. My assumption is you're probably using enterprise for maybe more advanced data models like the utility network, parcel fabric, and some of those version editing workflows. Maybe more, maybe. And online for public engagement or a combination of both. Those are some of the questions I would start thinking about. And then look at the solution and see kind of how you want to use those resources. You can definitely do it in both. I think the challenging part is if you want to put part of the solution in enterprise and then the other part in online. It can be done, but it's not super easy probably.
Yeah, I think I'd just echo if you're thinking about the use case, and definitely if you're thinking about a scenario where you need some information to always be up and available and accessible to the public, I think ArcGIS Online is the best resource for that. And then, some of the other considerations, we do have some solutions that are enterprise only because they require enterprise functionality, so some of those inform that decision, but most of our solutions can be deployed in either environment, so it kind of depends. In ArcGIS Online, you'll have the benefit of, always having the latest capabilities, because ArcGIS Online is just going to update regularly, and you'll have those capabilities. Where enterprise, you'll have to upgrade your environment to get access to some of the latest capabilities that we have in solutions.
Good question. Andrew, go ahead.
Besides simple field mapping, do you have any recommendations for bringing your data into the solutions and the layers that you have available?
You want to take that, Chris?
Yeah, so the question was beyond field mapping, is there any recommendations for bringing the data into the solutions? We typically, in every of our solutions, in the configuration topic, will describe what you need to do to load data into the solution. It may vary. Oftentimes with more complex structures, we may provide some examples of how the data is formatted and what are some of the required or expected fields to include. We most often use the append tools in online and enterprise to do that. Sometimes we deliver a pro project that will walk you through a set of tasks to take your existing data. You may need to enrich it. You may need to calculate a field. You may need to do some things. So it kind of varies from solution to solution. But I would say start with the configuration topic and read through that, and the load data topic, and that will give you the best advice on how you get data into the solution.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So 2 questions.
Mm-hmm.
One is, what if we don't have a network established, utility network or anything like that? How does it play in? And then the other one is, can I bring it into Pro and the solution into Pro in order to design it, get it all ready, and then throw it up to ArcGIS Online?
I'll take so the question was, let's start with the utility one. Do I need to have a utility network to use our utility solutions? The answer is no. We actually have data management solutions for folks that want to use the utility network and folks that just may want to do simple features and have no network. So we've got options for both. The other question was, can I bring the solution into Pro first and then publish it into online? The answer is no. You really can't do that, but you can certainly, once you deploy it into online or enterprise, you can interact with the layers and the content that's delivered to the portal in Pro for sure, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so web maps and layers and,
Make your link.
yep, just add them from your portal and navigate to them. Exactly. Yep. Good question. Go ahead, over here. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm from Colorado, and now accessibility is becoming a state
Mhm.
law. I was curious, any solutions that we have to deploy have to be
Yep.
accessible? So I was just curious, keeping the accessibility in mind, is that where your solutions are going? Is that going to be something that is going to be available with these
Yeah.
solutions?
Why don't you talk about that, Chris?
Yeah, so the question was about accessibility and that being critical in many organizations, especially when sharing with the public and having some requirements. So there's a couple aspects to that. So the first aspect is we're built on top of ArcGIS, and so we're relying on some of the product development teams to have a certain level of accessibility in the UI and the user elements. And we work with them to report issues that we discover that are occurring there. The other aspect is like when we're making design decisions like font sizes and colors and other things, we do run those through checks to make sure they pass minimum accessibility so that the contrast and things like that are readable. And so for the things that we can control, we do run them through checks and make sure that they're meeting a certain, we strive for, I think it's AA in terms of the standard for accessibility, and then we work with the product teams to report issues that we discover through that testing as well.
Yep. Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Andrew. We got some online?
Yeah. So the question was, have there been any discussions on a solution for readying GIS data for next-gen 911?
Good question. Yeah, so the question was, readying data for next-gen 911, and actually we have a solution, address data management, that does that exact thing. And if you're interested in that here, and you're here in San Diego, the Thursday we do a tech workshop on it.
Yep.
So I would really lean into that address data management solution because that's exactly what it's designed to do. Both roads and site addresses. Yep. Go ahead, you had a question on that topic?
Is that also NENA compliant?
So NENA compliant is a loaded term.
I know.
Yes. There's technically no such thing as NENA compliance, but it does use the NENA guidelines and informs the information model, but it is not a duplication of the NENA data model because that's not really a transactional data model. So what we did is brought those standards into the model and designed layers. But the other challenge with NENA is like it's only for 911. It doesn't account for all the other uses you guys have of addresses. So we tried to look holistically at that, and you'll see that it's a physical manifestation of those guidelines in ArcGIS.
Yeah,
Yep.
NENA was a very flat model,
Yep.
right? And you'd have to repeat a lot of the same information over and over again to get it in that flat structure. So we wanted to have a transactional normalized data structure. So you'll see it's modeled a little bit differently, but we have help documentation that describes how you can join tables together to get it into the flat
Yep.
format that's more
Publish it.
similar
Yep.
as the NENA format.
Yep. Yeah. Anyone else in the room? The other thing I should have asked a few minutes ago, is please do give us feedback in the survey. We use that feedback to drive the content next year in the session. So we would appreciate that if you don't mind doing that. Anything else? We got a minute or two before they cut us off. Anything else from online?
Definitely some interest in publishing road closures to Google Maps.
Okay.
And other consumer-based applications.
Okay, that's good. So
Yep.
there's a lot of interest there? Okay.
Absolutely. And there was another one. Most solutions are in the catalog are designed to meet local government needs. Do you have staff working with state governments to come up with common workflows that can be made into solutions?
Yeah, so the answer is yes. We have the spaces we're really focused on at the state level are natural resources and recreation. So we're doing a lot of work in that space. Emergency management as well too is another space that I would say is applicable to both state and local. And also some of the work Chris's team does for public works and transportation, there's a lot of overlap there and we're focused on both. So those are probably the three big domains at the state level we're working on. Any other questions before we break? Anything else, Andrew, online?
Has there permit application solutions for state government? Or is there permit applications for state government?
There is no permit applications for state government specifically unless they're interested in right-of-way permitting.
Yeah.
We have a right-of-way permitting that can be used by DOTs to help manage right-of-way permits, but then not environmental permits if that's what they're thinking about. Yep. Go ahead. There was one more, I think, over here. Go ahead.
I was just wondering, you have solutions here that may be specifically for instance, local
and then you deploying a,
Yeah. So the question was about, like, I like a solution, but it's not quite exactly what I need. I want to change it, I want to modify it, and then I want to be able to redeploy that and share that. We have a developer library that's on GitHub called Solution.js. That's the same library we use to deploy solutions via the app that is available to author solution templates from items that you can package up and then deploy. So your process would be deploy a solution, configure it, get it ready, and then you could use this developer library to create a solution item template that could then be deployed. So that's our path forward right now is that developer library, but we are thinking about potential other user experiences in the future.
So what you just said, are they available now that you can look at?
Yep.
yeah. Why don't you come by the island? I think you
Yeah.
can talk with Chris more about that,
Yep.
and we can show you what's available.
Yep.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your conference. Thank you.